So the last thing that we're going to talk about in this kind of three-part series of kind of tying up our views and controller interaction is loading static files. So if you have a bunch of images, if you have JavaScript, if you have CSS things, like if you're trying to use Bootstrap or Materialize, you want to be able to actually use those in your Django projects rather than have to write them into your HTML and use those three languages, HTML, CSS, and JS in your HTML file. You want to be able to load those things separately to keep separate concerns, just like we're doing with the views and models and controllers. And so to do that, it's not a super hard process, so we're just going to do it. So the first thing to do is Django automatically goes and hunts down static files as long as they're put in the right place, similar to how Flask does it. So Flask and Django both use this whole idea of having templates and static right next to each other as two separate folders. So let's make ourselves a new folder, and let's call this thing static. And we're going to put something inside of static. And what we're going to put in is second app, just like we did with the templates. And the reason that we do that is because eventually we're going to have, or potentially, not eventually, potentially we're going to have inside of our apps folder maybe 5 or 10 different apps that we're going to be accessing, because they all might do different things that we want to do. And people might have written these really cool apps that we're going to use. And we haven't quite gotten to that because we're trying to really focus on just getting this MVC architecture down. So basically we can make our controllers using that views.py file. We can do our routing through urls.py. We can render our views using that templates folder. And then we want to be able to deal with our models and deal with all our model stuff before we try to do all these multiple apps and really make really awesome applications using Django. We want to be able to make one okay application and really understand what's going on. All right, so static folders are super important. Obviously, you want to be able to get all that information. And so what we're going to do, inside of our apps, we're going to say, go to second app, create this static folder, which is going to sit right next to templates. That second app is going to be a folder inside of it, so we can reference these particular static objects. And we're going to say, let's make ourselves, for example, CSS inside of there. So we got second app, CSS. And I'm going to use 3 folders in here. We're only going to use one of them for today, but they all get referenced exactly the same way. So let's make ourselves a new file, or a new folder inside of that, JS, and a new folder inside of that. Again, another parallel to that called images. Great. So now we have static, second app, and then 3 different types of static files that we might be using. You might be using more, but it's nice to kind of separate these things. And I'm just going to make ourselves a nice little convenient JS file inside of here. Let's call this thing main.js. And it's going to just say console log hello world. Perfect. Sound good? Good. Pretty simple. Now, if we want to access these things, Django has a strategy very similar to the way that Flask did it, which is basically go to those static folders and don't write the URL for it. Just go and get it. And so let's go into our index.html and say, hey, let's go and get our static file in main.js and load it. And all it says is you have to say load static files, and then go and get whatever that is. So script source, and in this case it's going to be go to the static route, which is going to be this templates file, and then inside of inside of static, go to second app, which is we have to manually type in, and then JS, which we have to manually type in, and main.js. So this load static files coupled with this statement basically gets us to here. So once we're kind of inside of this folder, then we have to do the pathing ourselves. So this prevents us from having to write really complicated paths. So if we were in index.html to get here on our own, we'd have to be like, okay, so we're sitting here, let's go up a folder and up another folder and then down into static and then down into second app and then down into JS. So it'd be something crazy like ... / So that'd be starting here, going up, and then going to static. Or have to write an absolute route or absolute pathing, and that'd be fine also. So static takes care of all that for us. So let's just see it in action at this point. So we're telling it to load those static files, and then we're saying go get that static file. Fantastic. So going over to terminal, let's start our server. Server starts on up. And all our console is going to say is hello world. We can tweak with that, but we'll just do it here for now. So refresh the page, and there's the hello world popping up. So let's just change it and make it an alert, and so that we get an alert popping up, just to show that it really actually is working, that it didn't just dupe you all. So an alert. This is awesome! And easy, hopefully. Easy enough, I should say. Not necessarily easy, but you guys will totally get the hang of this in no time flat. It's just a function of just doing it over and over and over again. So, starting from the beginning of the project, Django admin, start project, whatever the project name is, go inside of that folder, make yourself an apps folder, go ahead and make yourself an app by basically running Python and going up a folder and running that manage.py that's got created by Django and say start app and whatever app name you want. Then start up your text editor, modify the settings in your main project, add the app that you're working on, or however many apps that you want to, change the pathing in that main URLs, and then basically treat the app that you're working on, whatever path you're going to, like it's your only project ever. All right, cool. So let's just make sure that's working. So I saved it, I restarted our page. We went and successfully got this second static application. So let's just restart this one more time. Cool. And then let's go and do our Git request. And there's our alert. So cool. And you can do that with CSS elements. You can do that with images. You can do that with JavaScript. Pretty much any type of file that you really want as a static file. So if you wanted CSV files for some reason, you could load them into your static and access them. Cool. And